All right, good morning. Hope everybody's having a great day. Happy Wednesday. We are starting 9.7 today. So we're going to be starting globalization today. We introed this a little bit when we talked about life of a t-shirt on Monday and kind of that interconnectedness, right? The multinational state that it takes of cotton coming from, the US and manufacturing in Indonesia and sewing in Colombia and then exporting back to different countries, that a lot of products and industries are not just in one country. They take many different nations and countries to produce. And this is the result of globalization. So we're going to look at what causes it. We're going to look at key vocab and then the challenges that come with that today. So we'll get through about half of the notebook today. So standards we're going to be looking at supply, demand, goods, labor, how all these things are aspects of globalization, the influence that international trade has on goods and services. So having tariffs, maybe limits on exports or imports, how it affects prices, how it affects working conditions, economic growth within a country, citizens' rights, and environmental impacts. So there's definitely challenges. So with every pro, there's a con. Oftentimes, pretty much, you could take any topic, and it's never just. Some things are black and white, like murder's wrong. Don't get me wrong. Okay, like I'm not saying everything. Well, it's stuff. But when it comes to these complex topics and stuff like that, there's always a pro and there's a con. All right, so you can't just say it's universally good. There are good things from globalization, but there are also negatives or challenges that we have to be responsible for. Okay, so really quick for a bell ringer, I'm curious. Today is Vietnam Veterans Day, so not just Veterans Day. It is self-defense. No, I was going to say even murder. Well, then I wouldn't count it as murder, right? It's then to me that's self-defense. Like you didn't mean to harm that person, but they were going to harm you, and you had to defend yourself. So to me, murder is taking life when it's not warranted. Is that fair? Or am I on a slippery slope here? You know what I mean? Survival. Yes. So that's what I mean. Like if it's my life or yours and you're coming after me, like, and stuff. But so even then, right, it's a gray area. There are maybe instances where it would be okay, not okay, but justified, right? I don't think any of us want to take a life. I hope not. That shouldn't be the goal. Okay. And stuff. All right. Today is Vietnam. So speaking of, where life is taken and it's done in the name of a country or defense of a country or something like that. So today is Vietnam Veterans Day. So normally Veterans Day is like in November. And that's kind of universal. This one is specifically for Vietnam. All right. The War of Vietnam, which was 60s and 70s during the Cold War. Do any of you have veterans in your families? Do any of you have veterans in your families? An uncle? Okay. When did they serve, or did they serve in a particular war, whisper, or combat? Did your uncle see any tours? Your uncle as well? Okay. Where were they, where did they serve? Did they serve? Okay, you're not really close with them. That's okay. Oh, in the Middle East. So probably in the early 2000s and then after 9/11 maybe? Your dad served in Iran and Iraq? Okay. All right, so probably after 9/11, like early 2000s, the Afghan war and stuff. Good morning, Miss Carter.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday.
We are just doing our bell ringer. Today is Vietnam Veterans Day. So we're just asking if anybody has veterans in their family or extended relatives or people that they know, as if we have a few that have family members. Pretty recent. Oh, absolutely. If they served, absolutely. It's, okay. Your uncle too served in Afghanistan. Okay. My father-in-law served in Vietnam. So if you know someone that served in Vietnam, they would probably be a grandparent or a great grandparent at this point. Yeah, they would probably be a grandparent or great uncle or something like that. Desert Storm in the 90s. So maybe a grandparent or a uncle or something like that, but they would probably be in their 50s by now, I would guess. And then it sounds like a lot of you might be more recent. Your father was in the Korean War. Okay. Yes. So the 50s, right? 50s, 60s, right after World War II, and stuff. So trying to keep the spread of communism, basically, North Korea, South Korea, and stuff. So my grandfather served in World War II. He passed, though, about 15 years ago. But I loved hearing his stories of when he served. It was it's like a different time and just wow, and stuff. So, and I'm sure with the Korean War, it's just such a different time. Okay, grandfather was in World War II. Yeah, you have to think at the first half of the 20th century, the 1900s, almost every generation served in a war. You had World War One, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam War. I mean, and it's just devastating. Yeah. Yes. Well, World War II, I think it's hard to find them. I mean, if they're alive, they're probably in their 90s or late 90s, right? Very, very few of them left. Yeah, it's that's another sad thing as time goes on, you lose those connections and it just becomes another event in history and stuff. So I think when we know people or we have those connections to people, those wars have a little bit more meaning or symbolism, you know? And as we lose those generations, those older generations that served, I think we lose in some of the connection to, and I think it's good to kind of keep those things a little raw. It helps hopefully deter us from further war, the value of life and just how devastating often it can be. So that's what I mean. We're getting more and more separated. I know, like again, our most recent probably after 9/11 and Afghanistan and kind of things in the Middle East. But as time goes on, we're kind of entering a different era of warfare, where it's not necessarily country against country as much. I mean, we are seeing that some like Ukraine and Russia and stuff. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but more and more the predominant is groups, right? So groups that threaten us. So it's really hard to kind of identify. And actually, when I taught world history, we talked about this quite a bit. That the face of our enemy has changed. It's more like cyber attacks, maybe on the internet, or it could be terrorist groups, from different parts all over the world. And because of internet, right? Maybe it originates in one country, but they have members all over the world, even within your own country. So yes, and the way that veterans were treated, we were very you think we're divided now, we were absolutely divided in the 70s, and so, unfortunately, it wasn't just that a lot of the people in the United States were against the war, but the veterans, the people who were coming back from the war were treated terribly, absolutely, and you can be against a cause, but still treat those people with it as with respect, you know what I mean? And stuff, so you could be against the war, but that doesn't mean you have to be disrespectful to the veterans. And yeah, unfortunately, yeah, a lot of them came back, and it was really, really sad. Um, this will be a touchy subject, but I'll go there. Today, an example of that could be maybe you are an advocate for social justice or criminal justice system or things like that, and you can absolutely have issues with that system and things you want to see change, but you can still be, respectful of those who are first responders and serve, and that most of them have a good intention. So I think there's examples of things maybe we struggle with, we're not for it, or we think there needs to be changes, or we have issues with it. But remembering that the people within those institutions are still people, and majority of people, I think, try to do the right thing. Yeah. So respect for soldiers. No, it's another thing. A lot of controversy around the war in Afghanistan, and that we were very politically divided when President Bush was leaving and President Obama, was coming into office. We were very divided over that. There was a lot of things that we thought were happening that weren't, false information, and it made a lot of people upset. But you can still treat those veterans who went over with in good faith and with good intentions, right? For our country. I have a friend from college that he was a little bit older than me, and then when he came back, he went to college. So he went and served, and then went to school a little later, and he served in Afghanistan. He did 3 tours, and he still struggles a lot of PTSD, a lot of PTSD. Yeah, Gulf War. Yeah, war is just it's hard. Any kind of battle zone is really hard, and the scars that you have from that, and people who go into that, there's trauma for sure, and often it's lifelong, something they have to deal with. So, thank you for sharing. It's just good to remember. It's always good to remember. I know. I believe me, it's not on my list of things to do. It's not on my list of things to do. But I think it's all the more important when we don't have to experience something that we appreciate, or at least remember those who have. And yes, I just think that in any service, though, think of like trauma doctors in an OR or something like that who save lives and things like that. People who do heroic things. Yes, Yes. So I think it's just so good. We kind of get in our day-to-day lives and it's really easy to, yeah, I know what you meant, John. It's easy to forget the people who have sacrificed, who do sacrifice, who are out there every day within our country, outside of our country, in many different lines of defense, and trying to protect us, trying to make life better, trying to save lives, and so that we can have a quality of life, and doesn't mean those systems are perfect, doesn't mean every war or every institution doesn't have issues. Um, but as best we can. So for sure, you can still have empathy for the person. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, a lot of people who sacrifice lives and died for us. Okay, so warfare unfortunately is a negative part of globalization, but we're going to be focusing on the economic part and stuff. I don't know why I put this gif. I just thought she was funny because I felt like that was kind of how I feel this week is going for me. I'm just like, here we go. so, you know, so yeah, sometimes it's like it was the mood I was in at the moment. So, okay, we're going to open our course arc and our notebook. And we're going to work on 1 through 6 as much as we can. Okay, so while you're doing that, I'm going to play our globalization video. So get your course arc and your notebook open. All right, here we go. And this is going to say, what is globalization?
Every day, we knowingly or unknowingly experience globalization, the worldwide movement of people, ideas, money, goods, data, drugs, weapons, computer and biological viruses, greenhouse gases, and more. This isn't new. People and goods have always moved around the world. The Silk Road, a network of trade routes stretching from the Mediterranean Sea to East Asia, facilitated the spread of fabrics, spices, art, weapons, technology, ideas, and disease over thousands of years. What is new, however, is the scale, velocity, and range of these flows across borders. Think about the speed at which an infectious disease like Ebola or Zika can spread around the world, or the reach of a financial contagion like the crisis of 2008. Look at your smartphone and think about the global coordination it took to produce. The interconnectedness of the modern world allows ideas, behaviors, styles, products, and news to spread more quickly and broadly than during any other period of history. But globalization's effects are complex. What represents an upside for some people might represent a downside for others. Technology, for example, allows billions of people to contact friends and access news from around the world. International supply chains, the networks that turn raw materials into finished items, produce and distribute goods more quickly and cheaply than ever. But the pace of technological innovation has also led to the automation of manufacturing processes, which eliminates jobs. Trade is another example. Between 1970 and 2015, global exports and imports of goods each multiplied more than 50 times. More imports lead to increased consumer choices and reduced prices, and more trade can strengthen ties between trading partners and promote peace, security, and growth. But more trade opportunities and technological advances mean many corporations choose to shift their operations to countries where the labor and natural resources are cheaper. And the individuals and companies that can take advantage of international resources experience outsized gains, which widens the growing gap between the rich and the poor. The effects of globalization, both negative and positive, are a reality. No one can opt out entirely. But governments have many options for responding. They can choose how open or closed they want to be towards trade, investment, visitors, immigrants, refugees, internet traffic, and more. Governments can also contend with globalization through collective rather than national responses. A set of international institutions and other arrangements has emerged to manage globalization. Although some countries view globalization as a threat to local identity, culture, or social and political norms, no country can be entirely self-sufficient. The challenge is for individual governments and the world collectively to promote globalization's benefits while effectively helping the individuals and countries that globalization hurts the most.
A great modern example of how quickly, because of globalization, something can spread, the pandemic, right? So COVID-19 spreading. I mean, it started in one country and then moved to another, and then it starts, oh, we only have one case back east, and then, oh, we have one on the West Coast, and before you know it, then it spreads, and then everybody has it. So disease or illness is a great example of a negative of globalization, how quickly it can spread and, impact all of us. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you got your 9.7 course arc and notebook open. All right. I feel like we're at the point in the year where I don't have to walk you through it, right? We can go find it. We've done it 100 times. You guys are seniors. You've got this. Okay. So in Canvas, 9.7 modules. So yesterday, 9.6 quiz was due. Okay. The EverFi assignment was due. I want to touch on one thing really quick because I still would say about 50% of my assignments, they're not being submitted correctly with EverFi. And it's frustrating for me. And then I know it's frustrating for you when I say you need to resubmit it. So really quick, in the announcements, I went over this on Monday and I even put the picture in the announcements. So where EverFi, how you're supposed to submit it, the problem that I'm getting is that I'm not getting all three things that I need. I'm not getting the score, your name, and the assignment. So if you look at this image right here, okay, when you submit a screenshot of your EverFi, all right, you want to do it on this page if you can, all right? So it shows me the score, make sure your name is visible, and the assignment. So I need the entire screen. What's happening is a lot of you, it's getting cut off at Marketplace. I'll be the first to admit, EverFi is stupid for not putting, yes, I said stupid, for not putting it here, the name of the assignment. But the problem is all of them show this same thing. So I don't know which assignment you're submitting. Now, I'm not accusing you of cheating, but I have to know that it's the right assignment. Okay, so please make sure that when you are submitting it, that you're getting all those things in your screenshot. Now, before you close that window, you want to make sure that the screenshot comes through, right? So you do control, the Windows button, screenshot. You got to push it, hold it for a second. I hold it for about 2 seconds, all right? And then I like to open up a Google Doc page and then paste it on there, Control V on there, and then I can make sure my image is good before I close it. Because once you close it, right, you can't get it back up. So I would make sure that I open up a Google Doc and put my screenshot there really quick. And if I don't like it, then I can go back and retake it. And that's a good way to check it. Okay, so please make sure that all three things are visible because otherwise you have to submit more than one screenshot in order, because I have to see all three things. You got to go to your submission page and the scores and try to find it. And then you have to get something with your name. And I know that's a pain. So just doing this right the first time will save you time, save me time. And actually here in about 2 weeks, we're going to be doing tons of EverFi. We're going to really be focusing on EverFi, doing financial literacy. So really making sure that you do this correctly. Any questions on this? Give me a thumbs up if you're like, I get it, Ms. Hall. You're like a squeaky wheel. Okay. So please, 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 because I'm not trying to be difficult, but we have just for the integrity of the score, you know what I mean? That's the way I need it. Okay. I'm not trying to be difficult, but I guess I am. All right. So you're going to have to handle it. All right. Sorry, not sorry. All right. It is what it is. I mean, in all fairness, right? I need to know it's the right assignment. I need to know the score and I need to know it's yours. And that's just for honesty purposes. And I'm not accusing you of cheating and stuff, but people do cheat. We know this. So it's just, you got to understand my point of view a little bit. Okay. Let's get started. All right. So if we are in Canvas, yeah, it's like, I'm really sorry, but I'm not sorry. Sorry, I shouldn't have even said sorry, right? You're like, then you're not really sorry. Okay, so notebook there, the course arc is there. You get them open. Here's our course arc, and there's our notebook. Make sure our notebook that you renamed it, you saved it, and you made it shareable. Okay, so make sure you did all three of those things, okay? Save it on your Google Drive because we're going to do half today. We're going to do half tomorrow. And then in our course arc, we're going to go to the overview page, and let's get started. So our objectives, we're going to define, globalization. What is it? Okay. We're going to look at some of the challenges of globalization, benefits. Like I said, in any topic, even like we were talking about TikTok, the Restrict Act and stuff, there are pros and cons to social media. There's pros and cons to government being involved with social media. How involved is always the question, right? We want freedom of speech, but obviously we don't want people being harmful or we don't want other countries spying on us. So it gets really sticky. There's often pros to things and there's cons to things. Very rarely is a topic just black and white. You know what I mean? Where it's just like right or wrong. Often there's exceptions or there's what about this or what about that, that has to be addressed or discussed, okay, in almost every scenario. All right. So let's look at our essential question. What is our key question? All right. And that is, how does globalization affect economics? And the reality is, it has everything to do with economics, right? So we're going to go into our notebook and we're going to put that essential question. I put it in the chat. How does globalization affect economics? So go ahead and copy and paste that in real quick. It affects trade, it affects prices, it affects jobs, it affects currency, governments, all kinds of things. No country can be completely self-sufficient. So the reality is we need other countries to an extent. The question is, how much do we do that? Okay, once we have that, let's go to key vocab. So we're going to go back into the course arc, go to the vocab page. The flip cards, whoever did these, they didn't even actually do the terms. They're all definitions. So we're just going to go right down to the matching. All right. I don't construct these. These are made by a company. So I don't know what happened. Somebody missed their coffee break or something. All right. So cash payments sent by workers who have migrated to new countries to family members in their home countries. This is remittance. Okay, this is remittance. So cash payments sent by workers. So for example, back in the 1800s, when slavery was ended in the United States and a lot of countries, as slavery was ending, it wasn't just the United States, in Canada, South America, parts of Europe, and stuff like that. Indentured servitude actually became a common form of labor, because as slaves were being freed or let off, or something like that, it's that there was a lack of the workforce and stuff. So a lot of countries, United States is one example, we were having indentured service. So what you would do is you'd sign a contract for like 7 to 10 years that they would pay for your fee to come over, and then you would work within that country, and then you could stay. And then once you were done, you could earn money and send that back to your family. So a lot of countries like South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, stuff like that, that were very impoverished, poor countries, people were migrating out and doing these indentured servitude contracts in order to establish a better life for their families or send money back to their families. We see this even today. Have any of you ever taken a cruise? Any of you ever been on a cruise? I'm going on my first one next Christmas. It'll be fun. Anybody ever been on a cruise? Okay. On these cruise ships, probably 90% of the workers are from different countries. It's very diverse, very, very diverse. Okay. Because a lot of the shipping lines, they hire people from a lot of people from Southeast Asia, South Asia, parts of the Middle East, East Asia. So from a lot of underdeveloped or impoverished countries, they take these jobs because it's opportunities to make money, make tips, and they're gone for like 10 months out of the year. I mean, they're gone most of the year, but they send their paychecks back to their families because there aren't job opportunities within their family. So it's a way to help your family. So the cruise line industry today is actually a really good example of remittance, okay, where you leave your country, you seek better job opportunities, and then you send money back. We see a lot of this with migrant workers here, people coming from Mexico or South America or other countries, and then working and sending money back to family in whatever country they're from. I have a personal example. My husband's half Filipino, his dad's Filipino, and he migrated here when he was 19. So he has a ton of family that still lives in Manila, the capital city in the Philippines. So my husband has aunts and uncles in the Seattle area that migrated in the last 10, 15 years that work, and they literally send half their paychecks back to their families in Manila still today in 2023, because there aren't a lot of great job opportunities and there's a lot of poverty in the Philippines. And so money here goes a long way there. So, $20 here, that could be rice for the entire month for a family back in the Philippines. Like, it's crazy how far it can go. So anytime you're working and then you're sending that money back, to help your family that's in an impoverished country or in an underdeveloped country. The goal of meeting current development needs without using up resources needed for future generations. That's sustainable development. This is the struggle that we are in right now, right? We have certain things we need. We need gasoline. We need minerals. We need mining. We need roads. We need agriculture. We need wood. So we have to extract resources, but trying to do it in a way or limit the way in which we do it where we're not permanently harming that environment. You know what I mean? That we're hopefully not doing at the expense of the environment. Or if we are cutting down trees, can we replant them? If we are going to drill for oil, can we do it in an area that's, are we making sure we're not ruining wildlife, environment? Or how can we do this to risk the some of the side effects that can happen from that. And so sustainable development is the forefront of what we're going through right now. How can we get the things we need without destroying the world around us? So there's something available for people in 100 years. That's the goal. And it's a struggle. It is a struggle because we have needs. So these things do have to happen to an extent, but can we do them in a better way or a safer way, or pick and choose how we do them, so that we're not permanently destroying environments? The movement of some companies, operations, or resources or production to other countries. This is offshoring. So great example of this would be the car industry. A company might be from one country, but they manufacture them in another country. I'll give a U.S. example. Nike, great example. U.S. company. They do majority of their manufacturing in Southeast Asia. Apple, great example. They do majority of their manufacturing in China. U.S. company. Tons of companies do that. So you're from one country and you offshore, you outsource the jobs of that, or manufacturing, or some of the jobs of that, to other countries. The migration of the best educated people of less developed nations or countries to developed nations. This is called brain drain. And this is actually a really sad thing that happens. So in underdeveloped countries, when you have those people who kind of break through the barriers, that they are educated, they're super smart or something like that. Not that you're not smart if you're not educated, but they are, they're able to get educated. They are advanced maybe in technology or research, and they have these higher skill ability levels. But the problem is within their country, there aren't those opportunities. There aren't tech industries, there aren't research industries, there aren't, entrepreneurial availability. A lot of times they will leave their country and they will go to a developed country. So maybe Western Europe or parts of the United States or Canada or Mexico, or, other countries where they have more opportunity. So it's good for them, but in that they get the opportunity, but their country loses out on a member of their country who could have helped them move forward because of the lack of opportunity. So this happens a lot, and it's really sad because those developing nations really need those smart breakthrough people to help bring in ideas and bring in things to help move that country out of underdevelopment, maybe into being newly developed. The increasingly tight interconnection of producers, consumers, and financial systems is globalization. So everything we're talking about, globalization. That interconnectedness of producers, so companies and manufacturing, consumers, people who buy and need, and then the financial institutes, currency, and governments. So make sure you check the whole thing. All right, now let's go over to our notebook and let's do the vocab. All right, so remittance. So this is when you are working in one, you leave your country, work in another country, and then send money back to your home country to help your family members. So we see this a lot, often immigrants here. Like I said, the cruise line industry is a great example. My father-in-law migrated here from the Philippines when he was 19, and he still to this day sends money back to help aunts, uncles, and relatives, a couple $100s a month, but that for them could be food for the entire month. Sustainable development. So the challenge that we have, our needs will continue to grow. We are consumers, we are a growing population, but can we do it in a way where we are not destroying our coral reefs, destroying our oceans, destroying our land, destroying our parks, destroying, natural environment for animals? And it's a hard balance to strike, but we have to work to do it, right? Otherwise we'll have nothing left. So it has to be done. Offshoring. So this is when companies go outside of their country to offsource jobs. So oftentimes this is in manufacturing or producing a product. So think like Apple, like the iPhone. This is assembled mostly in China. Resources come from all over the world to make it, but the actual production of it is done within China. Brain drain. When some of the best educated from an underdeveloped country leave the country and go to a developed nation. This is a very sad occurrence. Unfortunately, in the underdeveloped country, oftentimes there's a lack of opportunity, so they will seek better opportunity in developed nations, but then that less developed nation loses the benefit of their brightest minds who could help to bring industry and things like that. So it's this double-edged sword. There's lack of opportunity, so they go to find the opportunity, but then the country that they leave loses the benefit of those young, smart minds that might be able to help progress them. Globalization, the interconnectedness that we all have through producers, consumers, and financial institutes. Okay, once we're done with that, make sure again that you save this, check whole answer. We're going to go to what causes globalization. Globalization goes all the way back to the Silk Road, all the way back to the time of the Romans and the Han Empire, 200 BCE, before Common Era. So over 2,000 years ago, 2,200 years ago, where trade between East Asia, so early China, and the Middle East and Europe, along the Silk Road, camels through Indian Ocean trade and ships, goes all the way back to that time. And then over time, it has progressed. So let's watch this really quick, and then we'll answer some questions.
What is globalization? Toyota cars are made by a Japanese corporation, but the chassis of the car are made in England, the engines in Wales, the tires in Japan, the wiring in China, the seatbelts in the Czech Republic, and the headlights in France. Like many goods that we're familiar with, these cars are manufactured in a number of different places in the world. This is an expression of globalization. In 1986, global trade reached a scope of approximately 2,000 billion US dollars, and 10 years later, it reached 5,200 billion US dollars. As a result of this 260% increase, foreign-made products that were rarely seen in countries around the world prior to globalization became a common sight. Globalization is much more than international trade, global chains, and cheap goods. Globalization is a process where countries around the world are becoming closer in a number of areas. It influences people, immigration, employment, ideas, and knowledge. 21% of Canadians were not born in Canada. 69% of Kuwaitis are foreigners, and factories of international companies are built in various places around the world, employing numerous workers. Many goods are manufactured and sold identically around the world. Globalization changes the face of society, is the source of demonstrations and revolutions, presents us with faraway cultures, and even allows us to pursue justice around the world. The main economic expression of globalization is international trade, and it brings knowledge within reach, enriches our knowledge, and expands it. World trade has grown at twice the rate of the global economy since 1960, partly as a result of globalization in the financial markets, payments, injections of capital, and cross-border investments. Global trade has caused the rise of many world powers in history: Marco Polo in 1306, Columbus in 1492, Bretton Woods in 1945, and the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. In the long term, it is apparent that financial empires overcame military powers. In the late 20th century, global trade made China into the power that it is. With cheap manpower, China created an enormous export machine that many claim have harmed numerous industries around the world, such as the textile industry. The factors that drive globalization cannot be stopped.
Okay, so basically, this page is looking at, what are the causes of globalization? And so it's that we cannot be self sufficient, right? The need for goods and resources are unlimited, and trying to meet those needs are done through globalization and trade. And this goes all the way back to, like I said, over 2,000 years of interconnectedness. Okay. Um, you know, multinational corporations are a part of that, where you might be, let's say Apple, you might be a US company, but you get resources from all around the world. You manufacture it in China. So you are in many different nations in order to run your company. Social media is an example of that as well. Transportation and communication have obviously changed over time. It started with camels and ships, and now today we have jets, and we have better ships, and we have trains that make this faster. But also communication has gotten so much better through satellite communication and the internet, and the ability to communicate about prices and needs, and what is going on. And then the financial markets are interlaced, our stock markets and currency as well. So let's take a look at number 3. All right. In the Middle Ages, merchants traveled along the Silk Road, carrying not only goods, but also ideas. What aspect of globalization is happening today? This aspect of globalization is happening today. Do you agree? And I think we proved that when we talked a little bit about social media earlier. Absolutely, ideas spread. So it's not just goods that we are exchanging. It is ideas, it's technology, it's beliefs, it's religions, it's movements, it's identity, it's all these different things, right, that we share with one another, that we debate about, that we go back and forth about, and stuff as a result of globalization. So today's communication revolution is definitely a huge part of that. So this is number 3. Once you have that done, we're going to then move on in our course arc, and we're going to go to challenges of globalization. So there are a lot of major benefits of globalization, but there are challenges. Closely linked financial markets. When one country has a struggle, it can't help but impact others. If their currency is struggling, if manufacturers are struggling, if they face a natural disaster. For example, when Russia invaded Ukraine, right, we see gas prices impacted. Even though we don't get very much of our gas from Russia, it still impacts the market. It causes fear. And so what other countries do definitely impacts us. It impacts supply, it impacts prices, and trade, or it can disrupt that as well. All right, let's watch this quick video, and then we're going to work on 4, 5, and 6 before we leave today.
The concept of globalization and the potential benefits aren't hard to understand. By eliminating trade barriers in an honest manner, everyone could theoretically win. 1. Poor countries would receive a significant influx of capital, as international companies take advantage of the lower wages, and in time, this could even lead to a gradual eradication of poverty. 2. Those who live in rich countries can take advantage of greater product variety, as well as better prices thanks to imports. 3. The world would move towards a more efficient allocation of capital, based on whatever it is each country can produce better than others. If a country cannot produce, let's say, clothing in a cost-effective manner, it can simply import clothes and focus on the products it's better at making. Unfortunately, things haven't exactly gone as planned for several reasons. 1. Most countries don't practice what they preach when it comes to being fair. For example, rich countries which encourage poorer countries to sell them resources, but discourage them from selling actual high-value added products. 2. Everyone wants to game the system by artificially weakening their currency to boost exports, subsidizing industries, and so on. 3. Whenever something's wrong with the economy, local politicians and citizens love blaming globalization. It sure beats looking in the mirror. The end result is that more and more people claim globalization doesn't work. However, is what we have today truly globalization or just one big masquerade? The concept.
So I think they make a really good point there at the end of the blame game, right? We love to blame. So we could use some examples for ourselves. When gas prices went up, when Russia invaded Ukraine, certainly it had some contributing factor to gas prices going up, but saying that was the only reason, absolutely not. It's if some of it was local policy and things within our own government. So we love to blame, or we hear China all the time, right? Oh, it's because of China, or it's because of this, or it's because of that. And oftentimes there's an element of truth, but we like to say it's the entire truth and stuff. So the blame game is definitely something that we love to do. And every country does it. Every politician does it. You know what I mean? We blame parties, we blame people, we blame countries to kind of cover up our own responsibility in the mess, where often what we're blaming is a very small portion of what is actually occurring. Let's take a look at number 4. All right. So it says, so Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General, once said, arguing against globalization is like arguing against the laws of gravity. So basically, if you think about gravity, you can't fight gravity, right? If I jump, I will come down. I can't fly, unless I have a parachute or something, paragliding or something, So there's just certain things. Globalization is a reality. So arguing that we need to get rid of it, it's just not going to happen. It's like saying we're going to get rid of gravity. It's not going to happen. All right. It's just, that doesn't mean there aren't problems with it. So it says, what do we think he means? So in 2007, 2008, the financial crisis the recession that we went into, we love to think that it didn't impact anyone, but it does. When we go through something, it does impact other countries. And this is one of the difficulties of globalization. Some other examples, ripple effects of countries that have had financial issues and the impact outside of themselves. Mexico, Japan, Russia, Argentina. We could add Venezuela to this. We could add Greece to this list of countries that have had financial crisis and how that impacts those that they trade with, because it impacts currency, it impacts imports and exports, it impacts migration and stuff. So absolutely, when a country has financial issues, one of the negatives or challenges of globalization is when I'm struggling, that means you're probably going to struggle. When you're struggling, that means I'm probably going to struggle. Maybe not as bad, but you can't help but have impact. You're going to, because you're so interconnected. Let's look at number 5. Some economists claim that multinational companies have a positive impact on countries in which they set up operations. if you are a spokesperson for an association of multinationals, what evidence would you cite to support this claim? So let me just state this. There are absolutely issues with multinational corporations, okay? But there are some positives. So what are some of those positives? Like I said, there's always two sides to the coin. So as we read in the lesson earlier, the expansion of multinational corporation has sparked controversy. Economists argue that they benefit and take advantage of these countries. So for example, multinationals have been credited with much of the development of Eastern Europe. So when Eastern Europe, after the fall of the Soviet Union in the early 90s and the fall of the Berlin Wall, a lot of these countries were newly independent, coming out of communism, trying to set up industry, set up organizations to bring themselves from being underdeveloped to developed. And so multinational corporations came in, they opened factories, they opened businesses, they opened extensions of their business to offer job opportunity, to offer employment, to offer specialization, to give some economy. It's like, where do we go from here, starting from scratch? So this is one positive. Improving the environment, rescuing collapsing factories, providing a livable wage. So there can be opportunities if you're going to go into a country that you make sure that you are building appropriate factories, that you are offering a decent livable wage. So what a livable wage here in the United States is going to be different than a livable wage, say in Mexico or say in Indonesia or Colombia or something. So the currency standards are going to be different wherever you go. So you can't use it based on US currency, but you need to go into that nation, you need to say, okay, what are the expenses? What does it take to have a decent quality of life, to be a livable wage, to pay your bills and not be impoverished and, to eat and clothe yourself and have basic necessities, and making sure that you're offering that. There's an ethical standard that can be met, okay, where governments don't always enforce that. Multinational corporations, the capital introduced can bring in industry and technology that countries need. And this is true. There were a lot of negatives of colonialism in India. I'll use India as an example, okay? So if you think back to world history, one of the positives was it did introduce technology. It introduced railroads. It introduced the telegraph. It introduced some of those early technologies so that when India did gain its independence, it had some technology in place to start building industry. Okay, so there absolutely can be negatives from multinational corporations. Don't get me wrong, okay? But there can be positives in that the developed nations bringing in some of the factories, technologies, and jobs that go with that into these underdeveloped countries, okay? It can introduce it in a way that the governments weren't able to do it. Doesn't mean there aren't problems, so please, no one misquote me, all right? Okay. Challenges of globalization. So support a point of view with evidence. Do you think multinational corporations have an obligation to aid less developed nations in which they operate? Why or why not? I feel like this is a loaded question because I feel like there is some level of obligation, but a corporation cannot change everything. So here's what I believe. You can change it if you want. Okay, so you don't have to give this response. You can change it if you want. I believe they are responsible for going in and they are responsible for building safe factories, for, the maintaining of the buildings and stuff, providing a safe work environment and providing a livable wage. If this is going to be, again, maybe going back to the t-shirt example, if you're going to be opening a t-shirt t-shirt factory or something like that, is it safe? Do you have measures in place to ensure that people are in a safe environment, or if they are injured, that they're being cared for, that you're not just firing them and then they're out? Are you providing a wage that is livable? Okay. And livable doesn't mean necessarily always rich. If it's just an assembly job, it's probably not going to be a super high paying job, but are you at least paying at a wage where someone can live off that? They're not in poverty. They're not starving. They're not having to house themselves with 3 other families to live. You need to look at, there needs to be certain standards. In the US, we have those, right? We have minimum wages. We're working on improving those. Housing. For example, here in Southern Nevada, it is illegal to have an apartment or a house without AC. So if you're a landlord and you're going to rent out to a tenant, you have to have a working AC. Now, if you're a homeowner, you don't have to. That's your own thing. But if you're going to be like a renter's agreement, you have to, because it's a necessity, right? Yes, it's a necessity. It's an absolute. So if you are renting in a rental unit in an actual contract, according to Nevada law, you have to have access to AC within the unit. It's a requirement. Not every country has that. Not every country has standards of electricity, indoor plumbing, the way housing is set up, or factories, or what those minimum wages are. And so unfortunately, corporations can take advantage of that sometimes. And that's terrible. So I do think there's that obligation, at least a livable wage, safe working environment in those conditions. Beyond that, I don't know really what they're a corporation. They're there to make money. It is the government's job to wholeheartedly take that on, but they being a part of that and coming into that country can help solve the problem, not be a contributor to the problem. So there definitely is some liability, and that's my opinion. If you think something different, you're welcome to elaborate on that. Okay, so that's number 6. That's where we're going to end for the day. All right, go ahead and give me a thumbs up once you have 4, 5, and 6 done. You got half your notebook done. Awesome. Okay, I promise tomorrow we'll go a little bit faster. We'll get the notebook done, and I have a Kahoots for tomorrow. All right, so I do have a Kahoots for 9.7, so we'll have fun with that. All right, I know it's kind of a lot of information today, trying to get stuff done. All right, so thanks for bearing with me. All right, so to wrap things up, all right, I got to throw in my South Park, right? Okay, we did get 1 through 6 done in class. We worked on the course arc, challenges of globalization. Tomorrow we'll get into migration and some other aspects of globalization. We'll finish the course arc. We'll get a good chunk of the notebook done, and then we will review for the quiz. And I have a Kahoots for you tomorrow. All right, so that'll be questions right off the test. So a little fun and review for our quiz. Woohoo! All right, so I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll let you go a couple minutes early. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow. Be ready. Have your course arc notebook open, and we'll keep being productive. Okay, thank you so much.
Ms. Hall, could you send me the teacher form for today?
Teacher form. Do you mean
your copy?
Oh yeah. Let me add you really quick. Marie, a second here. Do you have an open period, Marie? I teach this next period and I teach it 5th. Bye. Yeah, you're welcome to go. So you have 2 options. I teach it 3rd and I teach it 5th. So if you don't have a class one of those periods, you can join. Okay, yeah. So if you want to join the beginning of next period, you're welcome to do that. So it's same code. It's just a 3 instead of a 2. Okay.
I'll see you tomorrow. Thank
Yep,
you.
yeah.
Okay, bye.
Yep. Yeah, so you can do that, or you can fill out the absence form on in the announcements and stuff. So it's up to you.